Problem.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. So, on behalf of Framco, the French and American Business Council of West Florida, thank you for being here today for a webinar about microbiomes, a novel paradigm for our health. So, I'm very excited to bring together two distinguished experts to help us better understand one of the most fascinated and fast evolving areas in modern medicine and health science. So thank you and welcome Dr. Christian Brichot and Dr. Hariom Yadav from USF Health. So Dr. Christian Brichot will tell you more about it. So thank you, Christian. It's yours.
Thank you so much, Betty, and thank you everybody for attending, and thank you, Hariom, for being there. Yeah, so as Betty has said, I'm Christian Brichot. I'm a professor in medicine at the University of South Florida, and I have founded the USF Microbiome Institute, which is now co-directed by Hariom Yadav and myself. And yeah, so I will make just a brief introduction before handing over to Hariom. What are we talking about today when we talk about microbiomes? Well, we talk about huge populations of bacteria. We are talking of trillions of bacteria. Each of us today, as I used to tell, have between 2 to 4 pounds of bacteria in our gut. And it's not only the gut, it is the skin, we are talking of many tissues. Now, these huge population of bacteria, we have them from our birth to our death. And what is really important to understand is that what we are is really the result of a co-evolution, of an interaction between these populations of bacteria and our genetics. And this is really what we are shaped by. Now, on top of this, we have some external factors. And one, maybe the most important, is food, nutrition. And Hariom will come back to this, which is a major driver of the quality of our microbiome. So how does it work? Well, in this huge population of bacteria, very schematically, you can distinguish, say, good bacteria, bacteria which produce molecules which really shape our immunity, our metabolism, which help us to fight against infectious agents, also against cancer, which help us to have a healthy metabolism. And on the contrary, we have bacteria which have a negative effect. And in particular, they drive inflammation. And inflammation is a key factor for many chronic diseases. And when we have a healthy microbiome, we have a good balance between these populations. But when there is an imbalance and when the so-called negative bacteria take over, we call this dysbiosis. And this dysbiosis, and this is also a very important point to understand, is that the huge development of technology, the capacity to analyze the stools of patients, but also of healthy individuals, with the sequencing, very sophisticated bioinformatics data analysis, have allowed to really perform clinical studies on large number of individuals. And now it is clear for a huge number of papers, actually, that there is an association between dysbiosis, as I have defined it, and many, many diseases in humans. Cardiovascular, respiratory, infectious, cancers, and so on. And the question is always, okay, this is very good, but is this an association or is this really a causal interaction? Is really this dysbiosis involved in the disease, or is it the disease which drives this dysbiosis? And Ariam will come back to this in a minute, but the way to do that Well, there are several arguments, in particular the cohorts, prospective studies, but also what we call fecal microbiota transplantation, FMT. In animal, for example, if you have an animal with an experimentally induced obesity and you take the stools, you purify the microbiota and you transplant into a normal mice. And these mice, having received the microbiota from an obese mice, will gain much more weight as compared to normal mice in front of the same diet. So this really proves that you can transplant the phenotype and that there is a causal. Now, this has implications in humans, in particular in cancer. We can come back to this. This is still early. I mean, we are not arguing that FMT is something that you can use in any occasion, but this is something which is coming. So to close, Ariam is going to describe something which is absolutely key, which is the gut brain and the impact on the metabolisms. I don't want to spend time on this, but just for you to be aware that there is a strong correlation between the gut microbiome and also the lung microbiome and infectious disease. And for example, there is a strong association between dysbiosis of the gut and the lung with COVID-19. And this has been very clear. And also with long COVID. But it goes also for chronic infections, such as hepatitis B, hepatitis C, viral infections, HIV. So uh, again, without getting into detail, this association can modify the way we treat patients. And some recent data show that you can increase the efficacy of vaccines against, for example, COVID-19 by intervening on the microbiome. So to close, what I really like, and that's what I used to tell at this stage, is that we are moving from a period of time where the studies on microbiomes were really descriptive. Now, of course, it's still important to work on the precise assessment of what's going on, but now we can intervene. And this is also what Ariam is going to discuss. So I will close on this. We can come back, of course, on the conversation on something. And it's my great pleasure to introduce Ariam Yadav. Ariam is also a professor at USF. He's in the Department of Neurosurgery and Brain Repair. Ariam has been recruited at USF now 4 years ago, and it has been a great recruitment. He's very successful, internationally renowned expert on microbiome, and he's now co-directing with me the USF Microbiome Institute and directing the core center. So we are very fortunate to have with us Ariam today. And Ariam, I hand over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christian. Highly appreciate for wonderful introduction, and thank you, Betty and Framco, for having me here. So we will talk a little bit about what Christian already mentioned, how the studies in the microbiome are evolving and how they really impact our overall health, as well as specifically we will talk about the brain health, immune health in the context of aging. So that's how I try to put there. There is a saying that you are what you eat, but we also say that you age what you eat too. So it basically are kind of connected to each other, and that we will try to understand a little bit about the link between the whole gut, brain, microbiome, and how that contributes in our overall healthier and longer lifespan or aging in there. So just a kind of what we will expect to learn today. We will expect to learn is gut health and how does it matter in our overall well-being, whether it's a early age, whether it's a mid-age, or whether it's a late part of age. It really matters in every stage of our life. How microbiome trains our immune system, which really get developed in a very early age of our life. and how this gut-brain axis matters in our overall mental well-being as well as the metabolic health, and how microbiome contributes in the decision what goes in our blood versus what goes in our toilet, because that's what our gut does. Whatever we eat, the decision is made in the gut, what will go in our blood versus what will go in our toilet. We will talk a little bit about gut-brain axis specifically in aging and how these communications specifically matters into the cognitive health in the older age. And does the microbes living in our gut contributes in any way of the brain abnormalities, the people who are developing dementia or cognitive decline? How does that really, anything science behind it? And is there any way we can prevent these situations by intervening the microbiome? So we will learn a little bit about all these 4 points in here. As Christian already introduced, that is, we have significant amount of microbes in and around our body, whether that's on the skin, whether that's on the gut, whether that's on other parts. In overall, actually, we carry around 2 kilograms of microbial mass in an average person. And that accounts actually 10 times more microbial cells than our own cells. So because the microbes are tiny, smaller, their numbers are more than actually our own cells, because our own cells are bigger. Now, this is the number, but when we talk about the functionalities, it's a very interesting dynamic. Shows that the human genome, although it's a very long, but only express 23 to 24,000 genes, and genes are the functional unit of our body. Whereas the microbiome living in and around our body actually express around 300,000 genes. Now, who is making the more functional unit now in and around our body? Actually, the microbes. Now you can see that who can control whom. That decision I will leave on you. The second interesting part is if you take the 1 drop of blood and measure the metabolites circulating in that blood, actually 60% of are derived from the gut or from the microbiome. And these metabolites, although the bacteria doesn't enter in our blood circulation, but their metabolites enter into the circulation and they go everywhere in our body. Microbiome is a teacher of our immune system, because that's how our immune system learns from these bacteria, what type of bacteria are around us. When we are born, we are completely kind of not, our immune system is not developed. Our body doesn't recognize the immune system, but that type of exposure our body gets, that's how our immune system learns, and that memory remains throughout the life. Example is the vaccines. Why the vaccines are given is to develop the memory, and most of the vaccines are these microbial antigens, right? Another interesting part is gut microbiome is responsible for serotonin and the dopamine. These are the two very significant neurotransmitters. If you change their labels, just in the general language, if you change their labels, actually you can completely change a personality of a person. If you increase or decrease their labels, a laughing person can become a sad person, or a sad person can become a laughing person. That's their power is. Now you see that 90% of this serotonin is made into gut. 50% of the dopamine is made in gut. And that's all actually comes from the microbiome, because the microbiome provides the substrate for synthesis of these neurotransmitters there too. There are other neurotransmitters like GABA, glutamine, and others are also synthesized directly by microbiome. So that's the power of microbiome. And the simple example is certain foods makes us happy and satisfied. Other foods makes us not feel good. These neurotransmitters are the one that gives us the feeling, and it comes from our gut. So let's dig back a little bit about our immune system. We all know when we talk about the immune system abnormalities, allergies and autoimmune diseases are the most common one. And they are impacting, like, especially in the Western world, 1 of 5 Americans are actually diagnosed with either allergies or the autoimmune diseases. So it's a big problem there. Now, what these allergies and the microbiome actually have anything to do with is Because as I said, when we are born in this state, then we are in embryonic stage or gestational stage, we don't have the much microbiome in there. But as soon as we are born, when we are coming out from even the mom's birth canal, we are already exposed with a lot of vaginal microbiome. And as soon as we come out, there is a microbiome on the air, there is a microbiome in the everywhere, then the microbiome start interacting with our body. And that's how all these immune system start developing. So, and the microbes also start colonizing in our skin, on our mouth, in our gut. And as we grow older, whole the deviation of the immune system homeostasis get achieved. But on the same time, the microbial homeostasis also get achieved. So as I said earlier, is actually microbiome works like a teacher. So it depends on in early life whether we get a good microbiome, we will have the good immune memories. If we get the bad microbiome, our immune system is going to learn bad things. And that's what it may cause the other immune-related problems, whether that's asthma, atopic diseases, type 1 diabetes, Crohn's, and many other abnormalities of the immune system can come in the later part of the life. We will talk now, the second part is how gut-brain axis matters in our mental and the metabolic health. We have been saying this. I have got a gut feeling. Our grandma used to even say that I have a gut feeling. Why we say gut feeling? Feeling is supposed to come from the brain. The reason is actually our gut has as many as neurons as our brain has. So that means that's what we are having a second brain in our body, and they are constantly communicating with each other back and forth. So that's the reason of how our gut can influence our brain decisions, and gut feelings can make the difference. How the gut and brain talks to each other. Gut and brain talks to each other in two ways. One way is gut and brain, they are connected by a nerve called vagus nerve. And this communication happens in few milliseconds. However, there is another way these gut and brain are also communicated by circulation. So blood takes a lot of neurotransmitters, a lot of cytokines from gut and nutrients and goes to the brain. And brain also secretes many hormones and many other molecules. They also come to the gut. So this is a communication is happening in the both ways. In the direct wiring, it's like a internet. Our computer can be connected by LAN wire. That's much more faster, but it can also be connected by Wi-Fi system. So these are the classical example of those two systems in here. But in healthier state, these are the homeostatic communication happens in the both direction. But if someone has depression, anxiety, or other kind of the disease conditions, the same communication changes in there. And these communications can become inflammatory and many deleterious way this communication can happen. Now, there is another example. So and that happens to every one of us every day, couple of times in a day. Think about when we are hungry, does anyone else tells us, oh, you are hungry, go get the food? No, our actually gut tells to the brain, because the food seeking behavior start from brain, but the gut sends the signal, right? Now, the another interesting part happens is when we get food, even though there is enough food, enough left into our plate, we still stop. No one tells us, oh, you are full, you should stop. We stop automatically because we are full. Our gut tells I'm full. That's how our brain and the other activities stop, right? And this cycle happens. That's how our food intake cycle is regulated. And we do this a couple of times in the day, depends on how many times we are eating. Now, how does that matters really in our overall health? Because this is for survival. We are eating, everyone's supposed to eat. So that's how everyone's supposed to just keep doing that. Now, this can actually contribute our body weight management, whether we remain lean or whether we become overweight or obese. Now, let me give you an example. Let's say if a normal weight person is supposed to eat 20 bites, and as soon as they hit 20 bites, their brain or guts communication happens in perfect timing. This person will stop, and that's how the enough calories are there, and they will go. Now, what happens is if the gut and brain communications are a little bit slower, this person can end up eating just 2 more bites. Now, I'm not saying that someone has to double up the whole meal, just 2 more bites. Now, do the little bit math here is if each bite has, let's say, 20 calories, and the 2 bites will have 40 calories. Now, we ate the 40 calories in one meal, and if we take 3 meals, we ate how many? 120 calories. Now, this 120 calories every day, if we keep eating, that's what it can happen. We can become from lean to overweight or obese. Right? So this progression of the adiposity can happen just by because our gut and brain is not communicating on the right time. Right? So, and these are the very perfect communication. And I will talk a little bit about how the microbiome can influence this gut and brain communication to make it slower and faster. The another interesting part also happens is when we finish food, that there are two type of effects can come. One is we are very happy after eating food. We want to go back and and start doing the work because we are full of energy. The another situation can happen is we feel sleepy in the middle of the day. According to circadian rhythm, we should not. And this is called the foggy brain. Why this can happen is because of whatever the food we are eating, the way it is reacting with our microbiome, and that can have the different effect. Now, not the same food makes everyone sleepy. So if you put the 100 people in the same room, feed them the same pizza, some people will feel sleepy like this, some people will be happy. That shows that the depends on who has what type of microbiome. That's how their effect will come in there. What kind of reaction between the pizza and the microbiome is happening in that particular body. That's what the effect reaches to the brain in there too. And and this is a inflammatory reaction. And every time when our brain sense this inflammation, this is considered as a one punch on our brain. So it depends on how many punches we have been giving in our throughout the life. That's how our later part of the life, the brain health is actually determined, whether we will lose the cognitive function little bit more or completely, whether we will become demented. That's what these things really matters in longer term. Now, I want to bring attention on the next point is how microbiome contributes in the decision what goes in our blood versus what goes in the toilet. So just the simplistic analogy here is, you see this is a healthy tree, this is unhealthy tree. They are almost standing on the same area, but why they are healthy or unhealthy, there can be the different reasons why they can be healthy or unhealthy. So think about if this plant is planted on the same soil, but if they don't have the healthy roots, this plant cannot absorb the right nutrients and can remain more distressed or unhealthy. Whereas if the another plant has the better roots or healthy roots, it will absorb all the healthy nutrients and will remain healthy. Now, this can happen similarly to a human being, a healthy versus a sick person. Now, what is root in our body? Our body has gut as a root, because everything whatever we eat goes in our blood or in the rest of the part of the body is basically passed through the gut. Right? So if our gut is not healthy, even you keep eating all the healthy things, they won't come. And what makes the gut healthy is depends on what type of microbes we are having in the gut. Right? Otherwise, if our gut is not healthy, we really are dumping all those healthy nutrients in our toilet, not really in our blood. And that's what the decision making comes, whether we remain healthy or we become unhealthy. And gut can make that whole differences in there. So overall, when we were talking about is what we talked about, microbiome trains our immune system, and that's if the right microbiome is there, it can protect many immune disorders or immune abnormalities. Microbiome can also impact our gut feelings, which can contribute in our metabolic functions, whether we remain normal weight or the overweight or the obese. Microbiome also can impact what goes in our blood versus what goes in our toilet there. The next point we would like to little bit touch on is how this gut-brain axis actually contributes in our aging and how these communications can matter in our aging. When we talk about aging, we are in Florida, so we don't have to really talk much about because we know the aging population is growing. We are just 10 years away where we will have more 65 plus years old human beings than the younger people. And there is nothing wrong with getting older because everyone is getting older every second and every minute. But with the aging, we all know it brings the risk of many comorbidities. And this is like you can see the example, the number of comorbidities comes in there. It brings the highest burden on the healthcare system. And the interesting part is aging is not a disease because aging is a biological process every one of us goes through. But aging brings a lot of the risk for a lot of chronic diseases, and we don't know why, we don't know how, and we also don't know how to prevent them or treat them. Right? So that's what the science comes in there. But what we know is if someone has the more comorbidities, like for example, someone has diabetes and they also have blood pressure, they might also have something else, they have higher risk of the mortality as compared to the person who is free of any of these conditions during the aging. And this is a very interesting dynamic here. The people who cross actually 80 or 85, they have higher chances of going for 90 or the up to 100, but most of the things actually get worse before they touch the 80. So this is the highest mortality time point in there too. So that's something we need to be careful on. Another thing is now how we talk about the aging. Do we talk about how many birthdays we celebrated or versus the how our body is aging? Because a 50-year person can look like a 70-year person, or a 70-year person can look like a 50-year person. Right? So what is the difference between? There can be 20-year difference. This is depends on the biology of aging is going inside our body, and there can be a difference. When we talk about the biology of aging, there are 12 hallmarks of the aging, which basically our every cell and every organ in our body runs through. And what happens is during the aging, some small abnormalities accumulate into these all the hallmarks. The people who can look like a 57-year-old when they are 30 years old, their biology of the or the accumulation of these abnormalities in these domains are happening much more faster. But if the abnormalities are happening slower, then that person can look 20 years younger than another person. So this is what it matters. And we can actually measure the biology of aging by blood test and many other tests in there too. What this comes is to a hypothesis called the zero science hypothesis. What the zero science hypothesis is, targeting this biology of aging, if we reduce the number of comorbidities. So for example, as I said, if the people who has the more comorbidities, they have the higher mortality rate. But if we reduce the comorbidities, diabetes, blood pressure, and other conditions, we can actually increase the lifespan of those people, as well as we can also increase the health span, because the quality of life is also matters at that stage. And when we talk about what impact these comorbidities, these are the central mechanisms, as you were talking about 12 hallmarks, but one of the central mechanisms is inflammation. The people, it's very well known, and it's also called as inflammaging. The people who has higher inflammation, even in their midlife, they are known to be having more conditions into the later part of the life, and they can they will mostly have the less survival time in this in this world. What we and others have shown is if you compare the inflammation level in the young people versus the older people, somehow the older people, even they are healthy, they have no disease, they still have higher inflammation. So as we grow older, our body becomes more inflamed. And it's also known that if you see the picture of these brains, it's not just only the inflammation is in the blood, it also actually reaches to the different organs. So you see this here on the left side, the less red color shows the less inflammation. And you see that in the midlife, there is more inflammation there. And as we grow older, our brain also becomes more inflamed, like almost the red. And that's how this inflammation actually also creeps into brain too. Now, question comes is where this inflammation is coming from. There are majorly two sources of the inflammation. One is when we are getting older, our body accumulates a lot of zombie cells or half-dead cells. They are called senescent cells. They also secrete the inflammatory cytokines. But one of the major source of this inflammation is leaky gut. Our gut permeability increases. That allows the increase inflammatory molecules from gut to blood, and that causes the inflammation, and that increases the risk of age-related diseases there too. We also have developed the data on what we looked on is looking on the microbiome of older versus younger people. You can see the microbiome in the young versus the old people. These are all healthy people. There's no disease in the young or old, but you can see irrespective of any disease, you see there is a difference in the microbiome. Now, when we talk about the microbiome health, the less the diverse the microbiome, the unhealthy it is. And you can see as we grow older, our microbiome becomes less diverse, and that shows the unhealthy one. Now, you can also see here the older people have higher inflammatory markers like CRP, IL-6. They also have less cognition function as compared to their young counterparts there too. We also confirm that they also have more leaky gut because we can measure a marker called MVP. That is a marker of leaky gut. Now, the question comes is, as Christian mentioned, is that the microbiome living in gut is causing this leaky gut, or the leaky gut is causing the differences into the microbiome? So just to prove that, what we have done is we took the microbiome from young donors versus the old donors and put them in young mouse, which are age matched and gender matched, and then measure the leaky gut, inflammation in gut, inflammation in brain. And you can clearly see here when you put the microbiome from old donors to young mouse, you see increase in the leaky gut, increase in the inflammation in the gut, increase inflammation in brain. And also we have seen the higher neuroinflammation, higher anxiety, higher depression, and higher dementia behaviors in these animals. Now, another interesting part what we have seen is if we switch the microbiome from young to old, and we have seen the reversal of this whole mechanism. If you put the microbiome from young people or young donors to old recipients, you see the reversal of leaky gut, reversal of inflammation in gut and brain, and all these features get inflamed. So what this shows is actually if just by merely changing the microbiome, you can create the problem or you can resolve the problem. That's the kind of very interesting power of the microbiome. And this was the cartoon what we have developed by the discovering a lot of mechanism into it. But what this shortly shows is old microbiome somehow produces less beneficial metabolites. And because these metabolites are not there, that's how the gut barriers becomes compromised. And these gut barriers allow the leakage of the gut lumen stuff, and that creates the inflammation. And when this inflammation reaches to the brain, it creates many brain-related problems. And that's how it can cause early aging. As I was saying, a 50-year person can look like a 70-year person, and that can be one example. But the good news is this situation can be reversed by either using the young FMT or the metabolite, which mainly the young microbiome produces. If we give that metabolite butyrate, that can also reverse this situation there too. We also have developed the other pathways and other mechanisms. One of the discovery what we have found is actually there is a compound in basil. So I'm not sure how many people are basil lover here, but there is a compound called fenchol, which is prominently available in basil. And the people who eat basil regularly, they do have the protection in their brain for fighting with dementia and Alzheimer's disease there too. We also have developed other type of formulation which can manipulate the microbiome. One of the example is this heat-killed bacteria. And this heat-killed bacteria also promote the mucus layer, which is the gut barrier functions. it decreases the leaky gut, and it improves the overall healthy aging. And this product is already available in different formulations, including gummies, capsules, and chocolates, and many other forms there. So the bad news is microbiome can accelerate our aging, but the good news is actually there are some interventions if you manipulate the microbiome the right way, whether it's a diet, whether there's a probiotic, whether there's a postbiotic, or there's a fermented milk. Actually, you can reverse those abnormalities and still can slow down the aging biology in there too. We are still studying a lot more details about how the microbiome contributes in overall human aging. When we talk about aging, aging brings the problem in the hearing, high risk of cancer, muscle loss, anxiety, diabetes, cognitive decline, and dementia. For studying all these complex problems, specifically focused on the gut and brain, we have a study called MIA-GB Consortium. This MIA-GB Consortium tests the microbiome for free of cost for anyone who is interested into the studies. And we tell them as to what type of the living beings or what type of the microbes are living inside us. And there is no intervention for this study. And this study can also be done on online in there too. So in overall, I would like to kind of conclude our this talk here is as what we learned today is microbiomes are master regulator of our immune system, our metabolism, our nutrition, and the brain functions. With age, microbiome does change, and if those changes are happening in the wrong way, it can cause leaky gut and inflammation, and that can make our many risk for the many age-related conditions, which can make us age faster. But microbiome modulators like probiotics, postbiotics, or fermented milk products or other dietary changes can actually help to reduce those microbiome abnormalities, and that can promote the healthy aging for the longer term. So one of the thing what I always leave the message is leaky gut is like a punch, because leaky gut creates inflammation, and inflammation goes in our brain and punch every time. So it depends on how many times we create the leaky gut by eating some certain foods which makes us sleepy. So when I said the sleepy behavior is a leaky gut behavior. And leaky gut means the inflammation, and inflammation means punch on our brain. So it depends on how many times we eat the food which makes us sleepy, and we keep giving those punch, and the later part of that accounts for the later part of our life, whether we will maintain our cognitive function normally or we may lose our cognitive function later part of the life. So take home my message is let's save our brain from leaky gut punches and live healthy, long, and full of memories life. I would like to thank you, everyone, as well as my team members and the collaborators, as well as the funding agencies who sponsor our research. And big thank for Christian here for supporting everything what we are doing in here. So thank you again, and I would love to take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Can I ask you about the relationship between...
One second, William. So thank you so much, Ariam, for a great presentation, which, as you see, is already susciting enthusiasm. So we will take a question. So, William.
Yeah, what I'm seeing is that there's a relationship between aging and the microbiome. And to me, you're also, you mentioned a couple of things. One was neuroendocrine system and the endocrine neurology. And so my question is, as you age, you may have polyneuropathy of different sorts. And that's basically, the immune system can attack the sheathing on the nerves. And so the question I have is, to what degree is there any relations, or have you discovered any relation between microbiome impact, leakage, and neuropathy? whether it's inherited or it's something that's caused by a certain trigger?
Great question, William. And neuropathies are pretty widespread, right? So it depends on whether we are talking about the central neuropathy or we are talking peripheral neuropathy. However, although we have not done that experiments directly, but there is a literature showing that even like let's take the example of Parkinson. There are a lot of evidence shows that is Parkinson pathology starts from gut, because many of the gut bacteria does make synuclein as well as the amyloids and tau, and once they are uptaken by the nerve endings, then they keep moving from one neurons to another neurons, and then they keep damaging those neurons. There are some prions are also there which actually originated from gut, and then they keep moving from. There are retroviruses are also there. So
Yeah.
retrograde viruses, sorry, not retrograde viruses are also can infect one nerve ending, and then they keep going, and then can keep entering into the another nerve, and then they can keep killing. So that's kind of the one hypothesis is definitely proven and known to be. The second one you mentioned very nicely is about the immune system attacks on the nerve sheathing, right? Now, the interesting part is why the immune system attacks on our nerves, whereas it's supposed to be recognizing our own cells. That also shows is that immune system in those particular individuals are not trained well, right? It's not tolerant enough. That's the reason why it's acting against us. There is a lot of literature, a lot of research shows that is the more the diverse microbiome we maintain, the less of any of these adverse immune reactions happens in our body. Our body immune system start reacting weirdly is because it just lose the tolerance and the memory. And those are the result of acting on our own cells. That's how whether we are talking about in autoimmunity or other not complete autoimmune, but there are like mild immune disorders, which all comes, including allergy. Allergy is on another extreme, because in allergy, it becomes our immune system becomes irritated with that. Right? It's like an irritated kid, and whenever they see anything, they are just overreacting, right? And then the autoimmune one is it's confused. It basically doesn't recognize, and all these immune memories and immune training comes from microbiome, because the microbiome is the largest repository in our body for foreign antigens. And if the immune system is not exposed to this repository, they won't develop those immune memories in the right way. And that's how it may start attacking on our own cells.
Thank you. No, William, you don't have the floor, because we want to to allow other people to ask questions.
Christian, there is a message from Valerie. She said that the QR code campaign is disabled. So I guess she was doing the QR. You have some QR codes on your presentation, Hariam.
Oh, okay. So I will check them. If not, then I'll send you the updated one. You can.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So I have a question, which is, I don't know, first of all, does somebody has questions?
yeah, Sion has a question. He raised his hand. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Sion?
Here we are.
Yeah.
First of all, congratulations. It was a very, very interesting. At times, it was quite technical, I have to say. The metformin, the postbiotics. I need to make some ChatGPT research on that to fully understand this concept. But overall, I think the main ideas were really clearly expressed. You age what you eat, the gut-brain connection seem to be so incredibly powerful and critical in how we age and how we live and how we develop diseases. That part is absolutely fascinating. It seems that nutrition is what really regulates the microbiomes. If if I simplify, my takeaway on this. I have a question though, because we talk a lot lately about peptides. It's a new big things. When you talk about peptides, and especially the one generation 3 that are not in the market yet, but a lot of researchers are already, coming out on this. And my question is, since some powerful peptides work on inflammation, so how does it impact microbiome? How does it work?
Great question. So I think so the GLP-1 is one of the example of the peptides, right? Now the GLP-1 has a lot of benefits other than the diabetes and weight loss, right? The way what they have the effect is many or most of the times they are indirect effect. So for example,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What, Arya?
They are mostly the indirect effect. They are not the direct
Yeah.
effect, right? So if someone lose weight, it's known that the people who are overweight or obese, along with the diabetes, they have very high inflammation. Now, if you let them to lose weight, let them to bring their diabetes in control, automatically they resolve the inflammation goes away. The another part is we always kind of get fascinated about GLP-1 because we inject this from outside, but we forget about is where GLP-1 comes from. GLP-1 is a gut hormone. It's exclusively produced by L cells in our gut, right? So and these cells are living next to the microbes. And the microbes are the one who actually influence very heavily to them how much GLP-1 they will produce. And the bad microbes can suppress those GLP-1 production. The good microbes can promote the GLP-1 in natural way, right? But because we have been eating different type of food, we have just kind of already disrupted our microbiome. Our L cells are gone. We have no GLP-1. Now we have to inject from outside. So this is a classical example how the microbiome can influence the GLP-1 and the hormones, not only the GLP-1, all other hormones too, right? And in the one way or another way, because remember what I said is there are 60% of the metabolites circulating in our body are actually one way or another way derived by microbiome. So although microbiome is not entering in our blood, but all these metabolites can reach and touch each and every cells in our body, whether those are hormone producing cells or whether those are neuron cells or those are liver cells, kidney cells, whatever you name it. They all are influenced one way or another way. Now, what type of microbes we have, that type of metabolites are going to enter in our blood, and they are the one who will create that good environment in our whole body or the bad environment, stress environment or the good environment. So that's what it matters.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Now, I think that the point that you made, both of you, regarding the GLP-1 analog is very important to understand. I mean, in the view of of course, fantastic growing interest and impact of these molecules. Thank you so much. Do we have other questions? Meanwhile, I have one question, Hariam. Given all what you presented, one frequently asked question is, okay, but now should I go to be tested on a regular basis for my stool microbiomes, you see, because apparently this helps me to predict when I will die and how I will die and what I should eat. So please, how can I do this?
It's a really great question. And I wish we have the perfect testing going on right now, but because the science behind the microbiome is pretty new. And we are at the preliminary stage where we're trying to make, like the whole community as a scientist community is trying to make the much more efficient pipeline because the large data sets, trying to make these efficient pipelines to predict from the microbiome someone's health outcomes including the mortality scores there too. But I think so we are a little bit in early stages in that, although microbiome testing is available. You can go and get the microbiome testing done. You can order that from the kit from outside. You can come. You are more than welcome to come to our center. We do microbiome testing in our center. We develop a report. We discuss with you what type of microbes your gut has and what it means, and maybe you might have to change your diet according to feeding the right microbes if there is a disbalance is going on. But that's kind of right now on the research stage level, and the testing is coming, but testing is not right now recognized by our healthcare system. So insurance doesn't pay; it has to go out of pocket, and it's mostly is considered in the wellness space. So not in the traditional medical practice. But wellness, there are certain wellness clinics, they actually do order microbiome along with all those functional health panels there.
Yeah.
Specifically, if you say that, oh, I have some gut or digestion issues, they will definitely order the microbiome. It does give the clue.
But you see, also one of the reasons why I ask this question, because this is a frequently asked question, is that I would recommend people to be careful. I mean, when you want to go for a testing or something, please ask to experts like Harium their advice, you see? Because to be clear, we are a kind of blooming of many technologies and tests. Some of them are very serious, some of them are not. So my recommendation is really to take the advice of the expert. And this is really why we have this USF Microbiome Institute. Okay, William, you are now authorized to ask your second question.
So, what should I be looking for to eat?
Great question. My first advice is if any food makes you sleepy, make sure you avoid that if you cannot stop it.
If what?
If any food makes you sleepy after eating, make sure you avoid if you cannot stop it. Otherwise, stop it. That's a simple thing. And I'm not saying like that food is bad food, but it may be good for other people if it's not creating a sleeping signals. But definitely, if it's creating sleeping signal for your body, that's not good because that's creating an inflammatory reaction in our gut, and that inflammation is reaching in our brain, and that's how it's shutting down the brain to go for sleep, because that's what it happens in the sleeping behavior. So that's my first point is. Second one is yes, we should keep feeding not just only our body, we should keep feeding our microbes there too. So eat something which is less purified, less processed, right? The reason is because the more processed food is easily digestible by our digestive enzymes, and there is nothing left to our microbes to eat from there. So we need to also consider that, give something more roughage or kind of more fibers and more raw food, where our body will harvest some nutrients from there, but then also leave that indigestible roughage, which will go in the lower part of our gut, which will be available for these microbes to ferment, because 15% of calories comes from our microbiomes. 15% of the daily calories comes from our microbiome. So if we feed even microbiome will feed back to our body too. So it's like that's another thing what I would say.
Yeah, well, that's a very important both question and advice, and regarding the way to handle this. And it goes with, of course, the question of the ultra processed food, exactly as you explained. Okay, well, I think that well,
That's
thank
it.
you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes,
Yeah.
please, Betty.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Brisho. Thank you, Dr. Yadav. That was very So this is recorded because I know some people couldn't make it today, but this is very, very interesting. And we learned a lot today. I learned, I know you did too. So thank you everyone to be here with us and have a good day.
Thank you so much
Bye-bye.
for having
Bye-bye.
us.